As Alfred Hitchcock himself once said, cinema achieved perfection by the end of silent era because cinema is a visual medium first and foremost. In the early days of sound cinema, visual storytelling was at its peak, and we have silent films to thank for that. Hitchcock's respect for silent cinema is why he becomes a lasting name in the history of film, and today we want to find out why through his movie Notorious. The movie wastes no time getting into the plot. It opens in a courtroom, but the focus quickly shifts to our main character, Alicia Huberman, played by gorgeous Ingrid Bergman. The first time we see her, she's leaving the courtroom and people are questioning her about her father, the person that was charged as guilty before we see her. This scene has one primary goal: to establish Alicia's last name, Huberman, and giving us as much natural background exposition as possible. But Hitchcock doesn't linger on her. Instead, the camera leaves Alicia and it dollies in to show us the people watching her closely while talking about her. Without much dialogue, we already know a lot. Alicia is important, she's being scrutinized, and she's the center of the story that's about to unfold. Instead of relying on generic voiceovers or expository dialogue, directors back then had to craft their stories through visuals, creating a precise map of their script where every camera movement and frame told part of the story. The next scene gives us more insight into Alicia. This is where we learn her first name and see her in her natural habitat, a party. The mise-en-scène is striking. The guests are scattered around, chatting, drinking, and mingling, while a mysterious figure sits with his back to the camera. Through Alicia's dialogue, we get a glimpse of her personality. Lines like,
"The important drinking hasn't started yet,"
establish her as a confident, fun-loving party girl. At the same time, the camera teases us with the presence of another character, the man with his back turned, a motif that becomes resonant with this character throughout the story. And every time he's going to be away from the center of the story, Hitchcock will have him faced back to the camera. But for now, we still don't know him. Eventually, the camera pans to him, but Hitchcock keeps the suspense alive. We don't see his face right away. It's only after fade to black that we finally meet Cary Grant's character. This deliberate delay creates anticipation, making his introduction more impactful. When Alicia and Devlin, Cary Grant's character, finally have a one-on-one conversation, Hitchcock uses medium close-ups to frame their faces. This choice makes the scene feel intimate, as if we're eavesdropping on a private moment. And although Devlin has planned this, we can see the distance between the two. As the conversation goes on, we start to see a genuine affection in him. Right before Alicia stands, the framing shifts to a medium shot, and the camera tilts slightly to follow her movement. This subtle adjustment ensures that the action feels natural and fluid, drawing our attention without making us conscious of the technique. After a night of drinking, Alicia discovers that Devlin is a government agent assigned to recruit her for a dangerous mission. Angry and intoxicated, she tries to drive him away, but he takes control of the car. The next morning, Hitchcock uses a point-of-view shot as Alicia wakes up, keeping the story grounded in her perspective. This technique not only immerses us in her experience, but also aligns us with her emotional state. She's still feeling dizzy and outerworldly. This is where Devlin tells Alicia that he wants her to do a mission for them, the US government. And as Alicia is denying any sense of care for the country, Devlin plays a recorded disc of her and her father, reminding her of how in fact she does care about America. Hitchcock uses an empty shot and moves both the camera and the actress toward each other in a very subtle way. We get closer to Alicia to understand her emotional struggle. Fast forwarding a bit, Alicia agrees to the mission, but by this point, an affectionate, albeit complicated relationship has developed between her and Devlin. When they arrive at the hotel, Hitchcock stages almost an entire scene in close-up, which was highly unconventional for back then. So much so, in fact, that both Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant protested, complaining it was too uncomfortable for them. And Hitchcock responded,
and I said, well, I don't care how you feel, I only know what it's going to look like on the screen.
This bold choice to stay on their faces throughout the scene was a masterstroke. It pulls us into their intimacy, emphasizing just how close they are at this moment. It's not about the space they occupy, but the emotional proximity between them. Then Devlin leaves to get champagne, a detail that feels lighthearted at first but quickly becomes significant as the story shifts. The champagne bottle becomes a symbol of their relationship. Hitchcock begins the next scene mid-conversation, throwing us directly into their conflict. By the end of the scene, Alicia's role in the mission is clear. She must get close, intimately close to one of the Nazi officers. It's a painful turning point. Devlin, unwilling to express his feelings, openly distances himself from her, both emotionally and physically. This scene concludes with the champagne bottle forgotten and left behind on the table, a visual metaphor for their discarded connection. When we see Devlin and Alicia again, everything has changed. The warmth and closeness of their earlier interactions have been replaced by cold detachment. Hitchcock emphasizes this through his blocking. Alicia is placed behind a curtain, visually separating us from her, underscoring the emotional distance between the characters. Or, in another shot, he puts one of them in the midground and the other in the background. But perhaps the most heartbreaking detail comes at the end of the scene. Alicia, who had been trying to leave her drinking habits behind because of Devlin's influence, pours herself a drink after hearing the details of their mission. The gesture is small but devastating, symbolizing her resignation and the erasure of hope for something more with Devlin. Of course, just like anything else, Alicia quitting drinking doesn't come up as straightforward, but rather in the form of subtext in the conversations.
Well, do you hear that? I'm practically on the wagon. That's quite a change.
All right. You've been sober for 8 days.
I'm very happy there.
You see, Hitchcock knew how to play with his audiences, and more importantly, the plot points of his story happen like domino pieces, so instead of wading through a portion of the movie every scene, there's a new clue to find as an audience member. The last notable thing about this movie that I want to talk about is the key.
Got the keys? No, you said got the keys.
Either of you have the keys?
Something Hitchcock does very well is to give certain objects characteristics and make them part of the movie. Halfway through the movie, after Alicia has married Sebastian, a former Nazi officer who's suspicious of restarting the activities of the fallen government, Devlin and Alicia are looking for a clue of what they're doing. That's when a tiny key becomes the objective of a sequence. First, we see it when Alicia wants to take it away from her husband's chain. In a beautiful shot, Hitchcock tells us there are 4 keys in Sebastian's keychain. After Alicia takes the key of the wine cellar, the director then uses a suspenseful scene in which he gives us 3 hits of suspense before Alicia throws the key down near the foot of the chair. Then, the next scene, we go from a master shot to a detail shot, only to see Alicia has taken the key. This scene not only resolves and minimizes the screen time for which Alicia should have come back and taken it out of her husband's room, but also creates a scene that can be named until this day as one of the best shots in the film history. In the day of these events, Alicia and her husband are throwing a party. Devlin is also one of the guests in this party and will help Alicia in finding this secret weapon. After he arrives at the party, we get to see the key being passed by Alicia to him, in yet another beautiful detail shot. Circling around the party, Devlin and Alicia finally get a chance to go to the wine cellar, which isn't easy considering Alicia's husband is very protective and jealous of her relationship with Devlin. After discovering Sebastian's secret, they end up being caught in a dead end. This is where Devlin tells Alicia to play along and pretend as if he was forcing himself on her. Although Sebastian tells Alicia he believes her, it is obvious that he doesn't, and we know his suspicion. suspicious. In a circling manner, the sequence ends with the insert shot of the key, this time showing 3 keys and indicating that Sebastian is in fact suspicious of Alicia. So what makes Notorious stand the test of time? It's not just the performances or the story, it's the way Hitchcock uses every tool in his filmmaking arsenal to enhance the narrative. From the precise framing of each shot to the layered symbolism of objects like the key or the champagne, everything in this movie serves a purpose. Hitchcock understood that cinema is a visual medium, and he used that understanding to create stories that resonate on both emotional and intellectual levels. Notorious isn't just a movie, it's a lesson in how to tell stories through images, making it as relevant today as it was in 1946. Let me know if you're interested in more essays like this. If you're here by the end, make sure to subscribe because 98% of you still haven't subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you next time.